Hello everyone, and welcome to another Chaos Battle League video. And today we are going to discuss pro tips and strategies on being successful on the ladder, climbing your way up into that top 10 spot, top 5, even the top spot. And while right now the game being new, a lot of it is time spent. It also is skill. I mentioned that in my last video. You do have to have a measure of skill, and you also have to have a good deck. And with this series, this little mini series, whether it's going to be 2 or 3 videos, I'm going to discuss various tips and tricks while you're in battle, while you're fighting someone. But we also got to start at the beginning. How do you get to that starting point to get into the ladder and to start being competitive? It all starts with your deck. That's bottom line. Your deck is the starting point to being successful. Now, of course, you want to play a deck that you enjoy. You want to use cards that you like. I always like to pick cards that I like. But at the same time, to climb the ladder, you need to work with cards that are in the meta to be successful. And that right now is just a fact. The meta does change season after season with different updates and balances and so on. But at the end of the day, it is about, playing in the meta. Whether you're building some counters to the meta and meta cards and then having your own meta cards. That's what your deck's got to be based around. So that's the starting point. So we're going to get into it now. And I'm not getting into card details because every league has its own, you lock different cards at each league. So this is a general overview because this video is for anyone in any league. So of course you unlock different cards. So the meta is going to be different in each league. But building the deck in each league is the same. You have the same focus. So that's what we're going to start at now. When you're considering your deck, you need to take into consideration what's going to be your win condition, your kill card. What's the one that's going to get to that tower and do the damage? And that's the starting point of your deck. And again, this is my personal views, but I'm pretty sure most skilled players, this is how they build their deck. So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss these options. And I'm not going to get into every single card. I mean, this is just a general overview. But your win condition cards are cards typically that target towers, buildings only. So your werewolves, your trappers, both your cyclopses. The vultures, while they don't specifically target buildings, you can toss them anywhere on the map. So you can toss them onto a tower to chip away for damage. Those are your win condition cards. So those are the cards that you want to start your deck with. So how are you going to get to that tower? The Trojan horse, is another example of a win condition card. So from there, once you've decided on your win condition card, then you decide to build around your utility cards, your support troops, your defensive troops. So as you can see in this deck right here, I'm going to use this deck as an example. I've got the Cyclops as my win condition card. That's the card that I have chosen to get to the tower and to tank for my other cards and to do some hefty damage. Although its damage is relatively low compared to other cards. Its primary goal is to lock onto that tower and take damage from the tower while the support troops in behind it deal majority of the damage. So that's your starting point. Then what you want to do, after you've chosen that, whether you've gone with the werewolf or you've gone with the cyclops, then you're going to pick support troops. And there's all kinds of support troops. I mean, you've got like Van Helsing, you've got Buccaneers, you got the Pharaoh. Well, I mean, most of these cards you can use as supporting troops to it. Any card, in all honesty, you can use as supporting troops. The Kyrobot is probably my favorite, that and the Bohea. So you're going to go through and you're going to find a supporting card. And ideally, you want to find one that is also good on defense, right? So the Kyrobot is a fantastic defensive card, right? Once you've done your defensive, you've defended the attack, then you can use that Kyrobot on a counter push with your Cyclops and with other cards that you'll drop in behind as you're going for the kill on the tower. So to highlight a couple other supporting cards, you've got, the Pelican's actually a good win condition card as well. But supporting cards, you got, I'd call the Alchemist, the Oni, Ninjas, Bohea, the Gunslinger, Spartans, Cerberus. These are all great cards that you can use as utility and support troops for your main tank. And for actually, Frankenstein is actually a good supporting card as well. Actually, as I said, a lot of them are, but you want to choose the right ones that are fitting the current meta. Pistoliers, another great supporting card. So ideally what you want is at least 2 supporting cards. 3 is even better. Some people pick multiple win condition cards so you can like double push down each lane. I like to just focus on one and have more supportive troops in the back, and I find I've been more successful with that. So here, as you can see, my Medusa and my Pistoliers and my Chirobot are my supporting troops to my Cyclops, and the Dracula is a backup tank. So you ideally want to have some sort of backup supporting tank, a mini tank, so to speak, so that they'll sit back on the tower and help soak up damage while your Chirobot or your Pistoliers are in the back. So someone sends down a Cyclops or a Trojan horse or a werewolf, you can drop down your Chirobot to slow it down, and then a mini tank. I mean, Dracula, some might say it's more than just a mini tank. I'm going to call it a mini tank though, because it's been nerfed. You put it down to help do damage and kill the attacking troop quicker. Other mini tanks that you could use to support is the Samurai. You've got the Captain. Minotaur is pretty good, although a little bit more expensive. But he's also ideal as well. So those are a couple mini tanks that do some good damage that you can use and then go on a counter push with. So when you're going for the towers, there's different strategies you're going to take, whether you've just defended and you're making the push or you're starting the push. So there's different scenarios that's going to play out during the battle. Then you want to get into your defensive building. Now, some opt not to play with a defensive building. Depends on your playstyle. I recommend, especially in the lower leagues, to always have a defensive building. I've gone with the Kraken, but there's some great choices. The Dynamite Tower, the Obelisk are 2 great choices. If you have the Kraken, it's currently really good in the meta right now, and it's recommended. The Medusa is amazing defensive card. And you could technically not, if you have the Medusa, not use the any defensive building, although I wouldn't recommend it. But again, everyone's playstyle is different, and I'm just kind of going by my playstyle, what I suggest and what I recommend. Once you've gone with the defensive building, you want to start looking at spells. Now, some people go with 1 spell. I've even gone with no spells. But especially the lower leagues, you want to really keep 2 in. Bolt and I've got Bolt and Sandstorm. Sandstorm is popular right now, and its use is good in certain situations. Cannonball might be overall more effective to use for taking out defending troops. So you want to kind of plan the type of cards that you've got in your hand. And I'll tell you why I use the Sandstorm, because I've got the Kraken, Dracula, and the Chirobot. And what do all 3 of those have in common? They have splash damage. So the Sandstorm is great for pulling in attacking or defending troops into range of my splash damage cards. And guess what? They clump them all together, and my cards, my defending or attacking troops become more effective with the Sandstorm. Or you can opt for the Fireball and just fireball everything, or Cannonball, sorry, that's my Clash Royale talking. Cannonball everything together. So right now, as I said, based on the deck, because I got so many splash units in my deck, that I'm finding right now the Sandstorm is overall more effective for me. But it can be trickier to use. With Cannonballs, I don't find it as hard to use. You just, make sure you select the area where most of the troops are, because you want to get the best value out of that Cannonball. And then another one that's popular, even though it was heavily nerfed in terms of its stun duration, the Bolt is a great utility card to have. Gets rid of swarm units. It helps bring down the health of the higher hit point health units, like the Gargoyle Pack and the regular Gargoyles. It cuts their health down basically to half, so that you can take them out easier with your tower or your troops. And the half-second stun does still help. It still helps mitigate damage on your defending side and help get a little bit extra damage on your attacking side. And of course, it also will stop the Obelisk or Beam Towers or the Medusa from attacking for that half a second, breaking a bit of damage off. Again, that's, I guess you're still mitigating damage. So, at the end of the day, whether you go with 1 or 2, I'm basing my tips on running with 2 spells. And these I either recommend Bolt with Sandstorm or Bolt with Cannonball. Cannonball is a little bit easier to use, whereas Sandstorm is a little bit more situational, and really it only makes sense to have if you've got you know, a decent amount of splash units inside your deck. All right, so that's sort of what you want to build your deck around. So as you can see, and we're going to do a little recap here, and I'm going to give you a couple scenarios during this recap. Excuse me. So if you're going to start the push, you wait first till you've got 10 energy. I never go before 10. And then you're going to start with your Cyclops in the back. If you don't have Cyclops in your hand, you might want to sit back and kind of see what your opponent's going to do. It depends on how aggressive you are and what your play style is like. You start with the Cyclops in the back, or if you have Werewolf or Trojan Horse, those are played a little bit differently. Usually you play them right at the bridge, especially the Werewolf. And then you put your supporting troops in behind. But in this case, with the Cyclops, you started at the back. You get a slow push going. By the time your Cyclops reaches the bridge, you should be back at 10 energy. Once your Cyclops has crossed the bridge and has gained the attack of the tower, so it's absorbing the damage, that's when you go in with your supporting troops. So, you know, typically with a deck like this, I would drop the Medusa behind it and the Pistoliers behind it. I would keep the Dracula and the Chirobot in for defense. Or I would, instead of putting the Medusa and the Pistoliers in behind the Cyclops, I'll put the Pistoliers and the Chirobot in. So you want to try and keep a couple cards back for defense. That's the idea. You have seen in some of my gameplays where I'm just over aggressive, I put everything down. That's because I'm either playing bots or I'm playing low level people, or people I know I can beat quite easily. But when you're, you know, in those lower leagues, you got to pace yourself. You want to always make sure you've got cards back for defense. You don't want to just clump everything up together and then have nothing to defend with. So that's something you want to take into consideration. So once, you know, the tower, attacking tower or the defending tower is locked onto your Cyclops, you put your supporting troops in behind. And ideally, you'll have your mini tank and one of your other support troops back in your hand, and your spells and your defensive building to defend when they begin a counter push. So it's all about balancing yourself and not being too aggressive, but still being able to push and get some damage done onto that tower and hopefully take it. So that's the situation kind of if you're the aggressor, if you're making the first push. If you decide, if you don't have your main win condition card in your deck, or you just want to sit back and you're someone who wants to kind of play it out and see what your opponent's going to do, then you want to make sure you play a little bit more patient and you wait for them to make that first move. And then as your opponents are, you know, their cards are crossing the bridge, that's when you want to start playing your defensive cards. You don't want to put them down too early. You know, you just don't, you know, what's going to end up happening is their cards, I prefer their cards to lock onto my tower first, and then my supporting troops take them out. So, you know, if someone's coming down with a Cyclops like mine, what I'll do is, and they got some supporting troops, I'll wait till their supporting troops and their Cyclops get into my tower range, then I'll spread out my cards so that they're not all clumped together, and I'll focus on getting the tank down, which might be their Cyclops, could be their Werewolf, and then get my mini tank on their supporting troops. So say I've got the Medusa, I'll get the Medusa, I'll drop the Medusa down, lock her onto the Cyclops. Then in behind the Cyclops, I'll put down the Dracula to take out his supporting troops that are in behind the Cyclops. And then Pistoliers, you might put them off to the side to do some damage from the side and to stay out of range of other troops that are coming in. So and you're going to see that. I'm going to be doing some gameplay in the next video and discussing that in the next series about card placement. But building the deck is really the key. That's where everything starts. The towers and the specials, I didn't get into a lot of detail because this is focused on for any league, and every league unlocks different specials and different towers. So that's a whole other level of, and something I don't feel comfortable getting into, because right now Tesla Turret is still pretty popular and the Tesla Explosion is popular, but in lower leagues where you haven't unlocked those yet, you have to go with, say, the cannon, maybe the default one. I don't recommend, unless you absolutely have to, I don't recommend using the explosive turret and the beam turret, or the regular cannon, the one you start with. The other ones are all pretty good to use, but those three I don't recommend using. So again, to recap, when you're building your deck, remember, start off with your kill card, your win condition card. Start with that card. Then build your supporting troops. Go from, you know, the type of defense you want to play. If you want to slow down the pace, pick the Chirobot, pick the Medusa. That really slows down the pace of the game. And then you want to support them with a mini tank to help on defense. Again, I use a Dracula, but if you don't have it, the Captain and Samurai work fantastic for that. Then you want some pretty good damage dealers, as I said, on top of that, some air units, that takes out air units. Pistoliers are my choice, and that's something I forgot to mention, I apologize. You always want to make sure you have cards that will target air. Do not be left without air targeting units. Ideally, multiple ones. Pistoliers have great DPS, they target ground and air. Chirobot has terrible DPS, targets ground and air, but they slow things down. So the Pistoliers, coupled with the Chirobot, really make for a strong defense. And then, of course, with the Dracula going on a mini push, makes for a great push as well once you've defended. The Medusa and the Chirobot probably right now are the best two pair defensive cards in the game. You put those two together, and you're going to stop most pushes. I've noticed some people now are splitting lanes to prevent that from happening, which is a smart tactic for someone who doesn't have the Medusa or has it but wants to try and break your defense. Lane splitting works fantastic, and that's where having maybe two win condition cards, like having the Trojan Horse and the Cyclops, might be ideal. And that's something you can consider with a deck like this. I have thought about removing the Kraken because I do have the Medusa, putting the Trojan Horse in so I have the ability to split lanes. But I really like having the defensive structure. It really adds that layer of defense to it. So yes, again, going back, deck building is the most important part. So you want to make sure you've got balance in the deck. Win condition, supporting troops, utility cards, defensive structure, and spell cards. Unless you're skilled enough and you feel comfortable enough, I don't recommend going without defensive building and without at least one spell. Ideally two, because in this case you've got the Bolt, which will help out with stunning and mitigating damage, taking out swarm troops. And then of course with this I've got Sandstorm coupled with my splash cards and my splash defense building and my splash tower. I got the Tesla turret. Helps clump everything together and helps all of my cards, helps their DPS be more efficient. I take out cards quicker. I clump them and take them all out much faster. So at the end of the day, you know, I hope this helped. I hope it gives you an idea of what to do and how to build a proper deck. I've played people who just don't have win condition cards. I don't, you know, I've seen them on Discord complain about, I can't seem to win matches. And then I look and I'm like, you don't have any win condition cards. You have no Cyclops, no Werewolf, no Trojan Horse, no Trapper, no Pelican. You can't rely on any of the other cards getting to the tower because they're going to attack troops that are coming in rather than going to the tower. So you really want those troops that are going to target towers and get on there, either do hefty damage like the Werewolf or be a good tank like the Cyclops while your supporting troops do the damage from in behind it. So guys, if you have any questions or suggestions, definitely hit me up. You can comment, contact me on Discord. I want to help you out. I get a lot of DMs. I help a lot of people day in and day out on Discord. And a lot of people were asking me to do a video or two on how to get up the ladder. I hope this kind of answers your questions. It's the first time I've done this. It's a little bit easier for me to think about it in my head, but I hope it makes sense. I hope you can kind of get an idea of what I mean by building the deck and where that's really where your starting point is. Right now, the current meta is a beatdown in the League 8, but as I said, all of the other leagues typically have different metas. Maybe a couple cards are the same, but the meta is different because you're unlocking different cards. So that's something that you got to take into consideration, which is why I didn't get into specific cards. And it's not ideal because I'm showing you 3 legendaries, not everyone has. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's great alternatives for these cards. As I said, replace Dracula with Captain or Samurai. Kraken, if you don't have, you can replace with the Dynamite Tower, which is a great card. It's got a nice little buff. And the Medusa, I would suggest either Bohea or the Minotaur or Pharaoh. If you've got any of those are all great cards to couple in for your utility. The Pharaoh is actually maybe even better than all of them. But at the end of the day, those are some good suggestions that you can take and use. Or you can maybe even just use Van Helsing. But the reason why I recommend the Minotaur, the Pharaoh, or the Bohea is, they have that adds another area effect or splash cards to your arsenal. But again, Van Helsing has his benefits of the knockback as well. And then of course, Minotaur only targets ground, but his charge damage is amazing. You put him in behind the Cyclops, he will pretty much take out any defensive building in one hit and any other supporting troops in one hit. Then his regular attack being area effect now, he will take out swarm units that are attacking, well, ground ones anyways, that are attacking your main tank, which in this case is the Cyclops. Anyways, guys, that's it for today. If you have any questions, as I said, hit me up on Discord, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up here by commenting. Please smash the like button if you've enjoyed this video, or if you haven't, subscribe. I want to build this channel. Until next time, keep it chaotic, guys.